NodeJS class and few instructions for the overall class. Um, First and foremost, myself, I'm Anuj Singh, and I will be sharing my one-on-one link for any questions you might have after the session. After we go over the material and the content of the session, I will share the link for one-on-one session. So, and at any moment during the class as well, you guys have complete rights about stopping me and asking any questions. So do not hesitate. I do not actually mind getting interrupted and and try to answer um, when it's possible there in the itself. But if you for some reason don't feel comfortable, or if you find a question that popped up while you're solving your assignments or anything, or maybe you could not understand a particular concept um, during the class, you do not need to worry about it, okay? And we will actually uh, do it in one-on-one sessions. So with that brief of what Node.js is, and if you go to your student resources, um, you will see that in the let me share my screen. That's another thing that I do at times is fail to share the screen. Uh, you will see learning resources like this, which will have so we do not have a traditional textbook per se for this session for Node.js class, but we will be, if and when possible, we will be following through the uh, we will be following through the course material that we have, and so with that said, um, why Node.js? So well, Node.js is something that runs on JavaScript, and if you guys have played with any browsers or any stacks, any kind of browsers, you have the access to Node.js. So some of the not Node.js, but JavaScript compiler. And what do I mean by that? So let me put it this here. If you go to console, you can write any JavaScript code and execute. So for example, I could um, define two variables here, uh, and let me remove this. And not syntax error, we don't know syntax error. And now I could do any kind of operations, var a plus. This is me essentially running uh, sort of a plus operation on two variables. And you could always save this in another variable. So now and whatever I'm doing, right, is nothing but executing JavaScript code. So what you see in the Chrome is Chromium runtime engine, and same engine gets leveraged when you do the uh, Node.js. So let's first and foremost, you will need a code editor. To follow along in this class with the code, you will need a code editor. I'm sure most of you would be famous with sort of familiar with the Visual Studio Code. If not, do let me know. I mean, Visual Studio Code is you can always install it uh, through. just Googling it, and you will find the Visual Studio Code right here. And along with that, you will need Node.js. So just simply Google Node.js, go here and install the LTS version. Uh, Install the latest LTS version. And right now, if you see, it is Node 22.14, um, 22.14, 22.14.0. So this will install Node.js. And once Node.js is installed, you can verify your Node.js installation by going into your terminal and then doing node test v node test version, I believe. Yes. So I have 22.3.0 because I had installed it few days back. Since then, 3 has become 14, so they have released few more minor versions. But you would see 22.14 if you did it today. Uh, this is most important. Uh, Extra bonus points or extra thing if you want to try, but I would suggest not to try now. Just do it via this. But I particularly run multiple projects at the same time. So I use something called NVM, Node Virtual Manager, which allows me to install multiple versions of Node.js. For example, let's see if I wanted to install this, then instead of installing from here, I can just do nvm install. But this, you guys, if you like, you can do it if you want to run multiple versions of Node.js. Uh, Not nvm. And for Windows, installing nvm is easy, but for Mac, it's a little tricky. So uh, I would suggest follow one of those guides. But there's something there's something that's extra if you guys want to do. Now, if you see, I just installed Node 22.14.0, and now that I have in my available node versions, and I can just simply do nvm use 22.14.0, and my node version changes from 22. Yeah, get some warnings, but so we hit 22.3, now I get 22. But this is a handy utility if you want to run multiple versions of Node.js. Now that will happen at times. Let's say you're working with any open source project and they are using the lower version of Node.js. If you're going through this process, uh, you will need to sort of uh, uninstall and reinstall from here. Then another important software that you will need is something called Postman. So install the Postman, and I'll share all these three links with you guys for Visual Studio Code, and I'll create a, utility page, and we can discuss about Postman more in detail next week. Just have it handy in your machines, ready to go for next class. Any confusions on these three softwares? Node.js, Visual Studio Code, and uh, and Postman. So once Node.js is installed, what we can do is go one step back. There are multiple ways to run Node.js code, and I'll show you guys. And any code that we do is going to be available as well weekly. So you guys have a reference back again. Uh, Now Node.js can run JavaScript as well as TypeScript. We are primarily going to focus on JavaScript, but should you guys We will actually cover TypeScript as well. No, there's no reason not to do it. Let me see. And now moving on to, so let's create our first Node.js project. Uh, we'll do the same thing that we did with the browser. We'll add two numbers. Just leave it at that. But let's do it in Node.js instead of browser. So you can simply do npm init to create a new npm project. Uh, and let's actually just make a directory node project one and do npm init. Now npm comes bundled with Node.js. npm is another utility. So once you install your Node.js and once you verify your uh, uh, Node.js version, you should do npm dash dash v as well, and you should get something. You will get something for sure because it comes bundled with the Node.js. So moving on, you do npm init package name. So let's what we want our package name to be. So let's say node project one. So it's asking our project name or package name. Version is a description, a sample uh, node project entry point. Yes, we want. So this will be important. So you guys will see what I have on the screen. What is the entry or the root of our project? And so let's do this test command. There is no test command. No Git repository will do it. Author, you can put your name or you can leave it license. It's okay. And it finally wants a confirmation. And now we have a project that got created for us. So let's open that project. So now let's add our look at our packages and that was created in the build process. Now add our index.js file. So it's a main file of our project. And here, let's define our constant var a is equal to 4, const var p is equal to 4 as well. And let's just print the sum of it. And const var c equal to var a plus var b. Now, if you look at it, it's a very similar code that we wrote on the browser. Now come to the terminal. Let me clear this. And there are two ways to run this Node.js project that we just created, index.js. We can do is go to a dedicated terminal node and then type node and then the file name, which is index.js. Something happened. So let's actually what we have not something happened when we did this, but we are not seeing anything printed because we are not logging anything. So in browser, we have direct logging. Here we use simple console.log statements var c. We can simply do is value of var c is, and now whatever I wrote here, value of var c is 8. So it's when I run this command, it's perfectly executing this 4 lines of code. So this is one way of running the code. You have the dedicated terminal, or uh, you can have a new terminal in the Visual Studio Code itself. And I'm indifferent to what method you like, and you can simply do the same command. So node index.js, and it'll print the same thing. It's the same stuff. One good advantage of running it through Visual Studio Code is you get the debug point options. What do I mean by that is you could put a debug point here by clicking on. So if you see, my mouse is hovering over around number three, line number three, and wherever they um, click to add a breakpoint, you can click on that and then execute your code, and it's not debugging. Okay, debug console actually we need. We'll look at the debugging a little later. Uh, 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 Debug console. We'll look at because it needs some commands or something. So every time we are actually doing this node index.js, this is not the most ideal way how we execute the Node.js command. Uh, and like mostly in the project, wherever you go, there will be a start command defined in your package.json, which will contain the exact command that we just fired here. And instead of doing node index.js, we'll do npm start. And now it is executing, now it's telling it's executing this code and sort of doing the same stuff. Now you might ask why we need this. In the most sophisticated applications, your start command will not be just this sort, but you will be doing many more things, such as setting up environment variables or which might contain your database and database connections and whatnot. So you will be doing much more sophisticated command, which will be much longer in length. So it's a good practice to sort of use this, and we will be using the npm commands for mostly for running our node projects as well. Uh, so till this point, any confusions? Feel free to ask any questions you guys might have. Okay. Uh, if you guys need few seconds to think of questions, uh, you can have. So maybe I'll count to five in my head and give you guys 5 to 10 seconds to form any questions you might have.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, sure.
Um, I'm trying to install Node.js and I have some trouble with npm. I thought that npm should be installed with Node.js, but when I check in my console, that I can see Node.js version and it looks good, uh, but when I'm trying to check version of npm, uh, it
Okay,
said that it cannot be loaded because running script is disabled on this system.
okay. So when you do npm dash dash version, it's giving you this error, right? Are you doing it like this? npm dash dash version?
Yes,
And what is the error that you're getting? Let's debug that error. Working, and what the error you're seeing if you want to paste it here. Running.
I sent it to the chat.
You might not be administrator. Uh, okay. So do me a favor, actually. Come here and you see terminal. Right click on that and run as administrator.
One moment.
Otherwise, we'll try this solution, okay? But run as administrator.
Um, I run it,
And now do
and
npm version.
and I can see the same error. Uh, 1 moment.
That might be. So try doing this, open the PowerShell as an administrator. So you search PowerShell here, right click and run as administrator,
Mm-hmm.
and then try giving this command that these guys are saying. Because I have not seen this error ever on my machine, but it's something unique to your machine that we might need to debug. Okay. Meanwhile, you try. Uh, let's do one more thing. Another important concept in the Node.js is packages, and packages are other uh, npm dependencies or another other JavaScript files. So if you look at uh, our course material, you will see write file as one of the dependencies. And we'll go over dependencies bit more in detail, but I want to cover this so you guys are sort of uh, uh, ready for the assignment that they have for this week. Even if you guys are unable to read assignment this week, that's okay. Okay. So let's do this. Instead of console logging this, we will write a new file. So let's just simply copy this. this file needs to exist. So right now we were printing our value of C just to console. Instead, let's put it in a file. So for that, we can just simply rerun the project and uh, not, not this way. But this other thing that you guys will see me doing is even if there are errors, I'll keep it here so we can debug together. Okay, Dimitra, did it solve for you? In the meantime,
Uh, I'm trying just understand the reason.
okay,
As I understand, the main problem is in Windows PowerShell, and because for example, I have uh, JetBrains IDE, and in it works good because they, as I understand, they use their own terminal,
right.
but Visual Studio Code use PowerShell, and it doesn't work.
Yep.
So
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 okay,
thank you for your help.
yeah. If you are unable to at the end of the class, right? I'll share my one-on-one link so you can set up a meeting, okay, and we can go over, okay.
Okay, thank you.
And other thing that you guys will need when you guys do the homework before with the right read file is uh, read text file, to do the homework. And we'll go over this quickly in a little bit. So let's create a new file and let's say input file input.txt. So Node.js is not just regular JavaScript, right? It is full-fledged backend programming language where you can do all kind of stuff like reading file, writing file, connecting to database, or or or, or building APIs that we will see in next classes. All of these features we will see in the next classes. But for you guys to sort of do the homework for this week, couple of important concepts that you need to understand are reading and writing file. So let's create a new file. This is input file, and again, I suggest there is easy way to do all of this. Use ChatGPT and just do it, but I would suggest not to do it. Not because I'm against ChatGPT or anything, but simply because you guys want to learn. That's why I'm doing it right in front of you guys. It's going to note this documentation and taking the references from uh, 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 taking references from uh, sort of actual documentation rather than sort of copying pasting from, let's say, Chat GPT or something. So here, before I go to read file, what we did was uh, we have had a write file option where we wrote, instead of console logging, let me completely remove this. We comment this code out. Instead of console logging our output variable C, we wrote it in output file. So tomorrow, if I change my input, let's say instead of 4, I did 5, and B stays 9, and now I rerun, uh, my output is value of var C is 9. Uh, so I constantly am reading the updated value and writing it to the output file. Very similarly, you can read from a file as well. So let's, and before you and I copy this code from the documentation, let's see how we are writing to file. To write the file, we are using the file system module. So this is nothing but a different module that is built in with Node.js, and we are using the function write file from that. And using the write file, we are supplying where to write it. So we write it in a output file, output.txt, and what are we going to write it. And once the write is done, we have to do something, or maybe writing failed because let's say the file needed administrative permissions, and we were not running the command as administrator. Then that error will happen as error will occur as well. For example, this, let's say this file did not exist. Let me rename the file and now try to run it at point one. Okay, it's creating the file. It's creating, but previously it was, so let's say we created test. I'm trying to create the file at directory, and it's complaining that it's unable to find the output.txt file at test folder in, because we do not have a test folder, it's unable to find it. Sorry. So this error is coming from the line 11. So line 10 and 11 are catching this error and telling us that something went wrong while executing our command. Uh, that's how we do file write. Now let's do file read. So let's go back to our documentation, copy uh, copy it from here, and this is using bit old syntax, but that's okay. We have to import another function read file from file system and simply do read the file uh, and give the input whatever our input file name is. So our input is input.txt. So let's just do that and simply say the input file data is, let me remove this. The input file data is, this is input file. So the next line that we see is what we are reading from input as input. So in a sophisticated, there are two ways to read it. In a, this is more for traditional JavaScript way. If you want to sort of read it in synchronous manner, then you could let's say use another command that um, the system is providing is read file sync. This version has the same underlying execution meaning, but when you read it, it's more synchronous. So here we are using promise, and here we are using more of async mechanism. So uh, uh, that's okay. Now let's assume that we were reading this from a file, and our input file contained two numbers that we wanted to sum. And let's see what we get for. The input file data is 4. And now let's take the const uh, number A and number B equal to data dot split. And this will make sense to you guys very soon what I'm doing here. And let's log uh, what these numbers are. 4 and 4. Now I have two numbers that I got from an input file. So if I change my input file to 6 and 5, I would get it as a 6 and 5. So going back to the code, uh, what I'm doing here is on the line 17, I am invoking file read operation. And once the operation has finished, I have gotten a variable called data, which contains the file content. And what I'm doing is I'm splitting the content of the file by spaces. So if we go to our input.txt, there is a space between number 6 and number 5, and we are grabbing both the numbers with spaces. This is a special JavaScript concept. And now you could do anything with this number, both the numbers. You could simply uh, uh, sort of create another number that like we did it in before, and and let's say instead of summation, you're like doing minus a number b, and then we print it out. um, the difference between both numbers is, and then keyword number C. And let's execute our, and we get the output that we expected, which is 1. This is now maybe as a part of your exercise when you read this code, instead of printing it here, try to write it in the file. Try to write it in an output file or something that you guys uh, um, like, and and that's how you can practice the input and output writing. So we did a lot of code here, but now let's go a little bit back to a little bit of theory. So what really is happening with Node.js and how it's um, different from some other backend programming languages is due to its event event loop. And what does the event loop is? So whenever we are saying that, hey, read it from this file, the Node.js does not execute this command there and then. Instead, it takes this instruction and puts it behind a sort of a queue, and if there are no further operations pending in the queue, then it will execute this write file operation. Uh, Otherwise, it will first come back to write file and then put it in the queue. So it's like in this case, it will not wait for the results to be available to us, which is more apparent data. Let's say you are doing in simpler terms, 10 API calls. And what is an API? API is nothing but application programming interface in more traditional sense. It is something that you will use to bring data from your database to your, let's say, mobile app or web app. And let's say your web app or mobile app needs 10 API calls. You can run this API calls in parallel with single thread. Most of the languages use multiple threads to do this kind of operations, but simplified architecture of Node.js allows us to do this kind of single-threaded operations in more continuous fashion. So where Node.js shines the most is when you have a lot of I/O operations, network operations, which means reading data from databases, writing data to databases, reading from files, writing back to files, and whatnot. This kind of operations, Node.js is the best programming language uh, for implementing your backend. It can do all other kind of backend work as well, and we will be seeing in upcoming lectures how to leverage something called Express.js to build robust set of APIs, and we'll be diving really deep. But this is again still for the first day. This is quite a lot of code to go over and quite a lot of code to understand. So do not feel hesitant to sort of reach out to me if you guys have any questions. If you have short questions, I'm always available on the Slack. If you guys want more detailed explanations of any of this, you can book one-on-one session through my link, and let me share my link really soon. With that, I'll stop sharing and let you guys comment on uh, ask any questions if you have. With that, and also on the attendance policies, you guys don't need to do much. At the end of the class, I will be taking a screenshot of Zoom of whoever is available, so that way your attendance is counted, and you guys don't need to fill any forms. So right now I'm going to take attendance. Right now I'm going to take the attendance directly through the Zoom and save it from myself. And I have taken the attendance. So with that, let me give you guys few links that are important.